What if I told you that what you deem to be crazy isn't crazy at all? Perhaps it might be more real than anything that we're told. Blood rituals, aliens, disappearing musicians, and more will be discussed this episode.
Have you ever wondered about revisionist history and the way that the events truly went down in the world of music? Today, we are going to be tackling many topics, and we will be discussing them with myself, Miami at JST, and Rick Carson of Make Believe Studios. So sit down, strap in, and be excited for what might be the only episode we're ever able to do on this. We're gonna snap out of that for a little bit. We're going to get into a few topics of some conspiracy theories that really make people's heads spin. One of the first ones that I think is wild, Tom Delonge from Blink-182.
Yeah, I don't know if that is just so much of a conspiracy theory or if it's like, a rock star spending all of his money to go out there and declare what I personally believe to be like common sense out into the world. I think that it's foolish to believe that we are the only place in the world where atoms came together to form complex life. Whether we have the ability to talk or travel to those places, that's a whole other thing. Tom was entirely convinced that they were here. They were hanging out in the back room,
100%.
And he was not afraid to put his money and his reputation on the line.
Can we talk about the fact that this dude was literally working with the government while also being in Blink-182 at one point? Like, he was genuinely, like, with a badge, entering government facilities, like...
See, I don't know if it actually went down that way, because I haven't looked into it. I don't believe that Tom had, like, government clearance, security 4, I can get into S6 badge. I think Tom was, like, in a position to have enough capital to go after retired professionals and generals and whoever it may be and say, hey, let's get something moving. And they're like, yeah, this is worth my time. So, to the stars, I guess.
On to the next topic, we got to get into the world of the Beatles. Before getting to Paul McCartney, John Lennon. Was he killed by the CIA?
I personally don't believe that he was killed by the CIA. I do believe the person that killed him was a mentally ill person. That guy had a screw loose, in my opinion. That being said, did the CIA find a crazy guy to do it? There's a lot of people who want to make that a conversation. Personally, I think that, it was a really, really big tragedy.
Another thing people might not know, the reason why people think that is because John Lennon was at one time being followed by the CIA because of the songs that were being written by the Beatles, and they were feeling like it was going to sway votes for people because of them wanting to be anti-war while the war was actually happening.
Absolutely, and they definitely... people took up arms against the Beatles for decades. Not decades, because their career was actually very short-lived, but the whole decade that they were there. When John Lennon made the quote, about the Beatles being bigger than Jesus, they started burning records and stuff. They were on the radar, and whether he was killed by them, that's one thing. Whether he was followed by them, absolutely. Yeah,
that's a whole nother story. But now let's go on to Paul McCartney. Is Paul McCartney actually alive?
See, this is one that I've caught some shit for throughout the years. I'm going with no, man. I think that is Mr. Billy Shears. For me, it comes down to the music, and the bass playing that is done by who would be Billy Shears in the timeline is incredible. It is historically some of the most melodic bass playing and some of the best drivers of pop songs that's ever happened. And the bass player that Paul McCartney was before that accident was not that bass player.
Let's bring them into this with us. We're gonna play a clip right now of the bass playing that was supposed to be his before the accident and something that he supposedly wrote after the accident, and do that A-B.
Well, since I saw her dance with another,
there's a couple things to digest here from these clips. You know, the first thing is technology evolved in our industry. You know, Jeff Emmerich started saving a spot for him on the tape machine on the 4-track, and he was able to do these as parts, punch by punch, and work out these lines. So, you know, there is things like that I think really could have happened. But I also believe that, you know, 6 months in a hospital bed does not make you wake up, you know, a killer bass player just because you have the ability to punch now. I've been able to punch my whole life. Never gotten close to Billy Shears.
Yeah. Totally understand. And the fact that there's that Beatles song that talks about Billy Shears. So if you don't know who Billy Shears is, I learned this from him. There was a lookalike contest for Paul McCartney, and this person named Billy Shears won. There's all the pictures of him have basically been scrubbed from the internet. You can't really find any other ones. And in a song from the Beatles, it talks about Billy Shears.
They say, let me introduce to you the one and only Billy Shears. And I mean, there's lots and lots of little things about people saying Paul is dead in the album artwork, you know, Abbey Road on the front of Sgt. Pepper's, the cars in the background.
So I think that's going to be our close on the Beatles. I want to talk about Kiss for a second.
Okay.
So there's a couple about Kiss. One, during the whole time where people were reversing messages or having subliminal messages in their music, I thought that a lot of this was nonsense. That is like one of the big ones from Kiss. But there were other bands that once that became a thing, they started doing it jokingly. But how do you feel about that whole like reversing audio and like worshiping Satan thing that was going on?
You know, I haven't really looked into this one myself personally, but, you know, knowing what I know about Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, I bet you they absolutely were throwing that shit on those records. You know, I bet you they're like, this is great. These kids are going to eat this shit up, you know? So if they were the first to get found out or if other people done it, you know, I have no idea how that actually went down, but I could, you know, I would not put it past them. You know, those dudes sold Kiss dog poop. So, yeah.
All right, another one about Kiss. Do you think, because not knowing the story, do you think that Kiss took their actual blood and had it put into the Marvel comic issues originally for the Marvel take on the Kiss comics?
Yeah, so I've seen that whole thing. They've done like a couple things with their blood. As I said, yeah, absolutely. They sell Kiss coffins at Costco, man. Like, yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, this is actually a thing that has been verified. If you go far back enough to get some of the original prints, their blood was used as the dye for all the red on their comics that they did with their collaboration with Marvel. So that is another conspiracy theory. That one we can lay to rest. That did happen.
Yeah, so if you're trying to clone like a 9-inch tongue, you know where to figure it out.
Okay, you were actually telling me about the Fugees and that there's a Fed in the Fugees.
Yeah, so this is like a relatively recent one, but I gotta give a shout out to Tupac Shakur on this one because he said everybody in the Fugees a Fed like 30 years ago. And then recently, Praz, isn't his name Praz, I believe, from the Fugees, got busted being a double agent. Like he was already a federal agent, but then he also took like $100 million or something like that from China to influence some like crap election.
The feds are out here just like making bands like, yo bro, you play guitar.
Like he was a Fed and then he was a double agent for another foreign country. That is wild to me. It just makes me think if he's a Fed, maybe Tupac was right.
Yeah. That's actually a really interesting one. And the one I want to end off on, Kanye West. This is a relatively new one. It's pretty interesting. And, you know, we were talking a little bit about this one. David Bowie has an imaginary character in his songs that goes by Ziggy Stardust. And people believe that Kanye West is supposedly Ziggy Stardust come to life. The reason why they think this is David Bowie came out with an album 5 years before Kanye West was born. If you look above the stoop that he's standing on, it says K. West above it. This is before Kanye was born, before he was even a thought. And the first song on there is titled 5 Years. 5 years after that album came out, Kanye West was born. And David Bowie is one of the only people that Kanye West ever talks about in a very respectful manner. So how do you feel about this the reincarnation of Ziggy Stardust is Kanye West?
You know, I think that this is one of those things where there's just like a lot of happenstance, but also I want to believe that like when David Bowie died, that, you know, Kanye was just like on a stage in Ibiza going Super Saiyan or something, soaking it in.
Some link between the two. This is all like, there's people that are really following this conspiracy right now, so definitely go check into that, the Ziggy Stardust Kanye West conspiracy. Yeah,
that's a pretty wild one. I will say, you know, he was born, you know, 5 years and 2 days, like timeline. There's a lot of coincidence in that one.
There is some coincidence there. So, yep. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This is our little escapade going down some conspiracy theories, and figured we'd have some fun on the channel. We never really dig into this kind of stuff. Shout out to Tom. You were right all along. What's your age again? I'm gonna say, with the wisdom you've given us, infinite. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will catch you next time. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow Make Believe Studio as well as Joey Sturgis Tones. Both of those will be in the description below.
Have a good day.
Peace.